Okay. Welcome, everybody. For those of you that are just dialing in, it's an absolute pleasure to be here with you all today. We have an action-packed day ahead of us with lots of amazing and super detailed and comprehensive sessions, all in the pursuit of TMF maturity. While we allow everybody to jump in, I'd love to know where everybody is dialing in from. So head over to the chat, let us know what part of the world you guys are dialing in from today. That would be great. All right. Give everybody maybe 2 minutes to start folding in. And just let us know in the chat. Okay, looks like maybe the chat's not working today. All right, we've got emojis, we've got thumbs up, which is great. All right, we've already got over 100 of you. Thank you so much for joining. We're going to get started in a few minutes. We have an action-packed day. For those of you that are just joining, we have 4 sessions that are somewhat back-to-back. So we got 4 different 45-minute sessions that will be running from now until about 2 Eastern in the afternoon. So for those of you that are dialing in from other parts of the world, I'm not sure what time that will be for you, but maybe it's evening, maybe it's later this morning. But either way, we're super excited and really happy that you guys are joining us for another really great event. Maybe what we can do is, Donatella, maybe you can start sharing your screen and then we will kick off some of the introductions for today. Just as a reminder for everybody, this is probably, out of all the questions that we get from webinars and online events that we do, probably the most common question is this session recorded? It absolutely is. It will be made available to everybody after. So if you need to drop out to another meeting, or if you have colleagues that are unable to attend, we are recording every single session, and you'll be able to access them afterwards. So let's kick it off. So welcome to another really great, informative live event from Montreal. As you know, we're big proponents of trying to give as much free and useful education when it comes to trial master files as possible. Of course, for those of you that have been familiar with Montreal for a little bit, you'll know that we also run a very, very large, sort of the largest TMF conference on the planet, TMF Week, which happens around sort of spring, early summertime. But we wanted to put on a different event really focused on organizations that are looking to improve the maturity of their team, their process, and their overall organization. So, which is why we've put together TMF Maturity Day 2022. Just a couple of housekeeping items on the next slide. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the sessions that we have. So 4 complimentary sessions. We encourage questions. There is a Q&A tab that you guys should be able to access. So please feel free to throw your questions throughout the session, and we'll try and get to those questions at the end of Donatella's presentation. The sessions that we're going to be focusing on today, we have 4 really, really great sessions. We have the first session, which is the session that you're in now, which is how to identify your organization's TMF maturity and how do you plan for growth. We're going to have about 30 minutes presentation, and we're going to try and keep around 15 minutes for questions. And then we'll take a short 15-minute break before we then jump into the next session of the day, which will be focused on TMF management process development. So building a TMF management process from start to finish. This is going to be a great session for those teams that are maybe just implementing a system for the first time, or maybe bringing TMF management in-house, taking back some of that control of the TMF management process. So we've got some really practical advice and guidance there. At 12 Eastern, we actually have an open discussion, a really open panel discussion, which we're calling the Trial Master File AMA, or Ask the Experts Anything, Ask Me Anything. You'll be able to ask any question that you want to our TMF panelists, try and stump them, try and throw as many difficult questions as you can at them. We have some predefined questions that we captured from the community already that we'll be answering, but we also want to hear from you guys as well. And then the final session of the day is really focused on metrics. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to develop a trial master file metrics roadmap so that you can start to measure and, of course, improve and remediate issues that you've identified through those metrics. Next slide. So couple housekeeping items for today's session and all the sessions. I mentioned that they're 45 minutes long. All of the sessions are recorded and will be made available afterwards. And then, of course, we do have the question tab on Zoom. Gone through all of that, but if you guys have any questions, we have members of our team on the line today, so feel free to ask those questions as we go through. Okay. So now that brings us to the presentation. So how to identify your organization's TMF maturity and planning for growth. So let's take a look at the agenda just to see what we're going to cover today. But before I do that, I should say, maybe I should introduce the guest, the star of the show. So for those of you that don't know, Donatella Ballerini is our head of eTMF services here, a new division that we more recently launched, really to assist and support organizations that are looking to improve TMF maturity and get greater and deeper support to TMF strategy and consulting. Donatella is very experienced in TMF management, working at sponsors and also working on a number of really big sort of TMF optimization projects. So we're super happy to have Donatella here today. Donatella, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to you, Oliver. Thank you so much. All right, so let's jump into what we're going to cover today, and then I'm going to hand it over to Donatella. So the agenda, we're going to talk about what is a TMF maturity model. All right, that's important for us to focus on for those of you maybe registered thinking, I'm not sure I know what a TMF maturity model is. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to focus on how you can identify your team's level of TMF maturity. So there's some practical steps that you can take to be able to evaluate where you might be in that journey to TMF maturity. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can use the maturity model to find gaps in your process and improve some of those gaps. And then, of course, how to plan for growth. And then we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. Now, before I move on, one of the things that's super important for all of these sessions, and in fact, all of the events that Montreal puts on, is what you guys will be able to take away from the session. So the objective of today is that you will leave today's session with a core understanding of what TMF maturity is, and then be able to define a strategy for improved inspection readiness with a maturity model in mind. So those are the sort of core objectives for today's session. And with that, I think I'll hand it over to you, Donatella.
Thank you so much, Oliver, for this great introduction. And I'm very, very happy to have the opportunity to talk with you today about maturity and TMF maturity model. Because, yesterday it was the last episode of House of the Dragon, so my day was really, really sad. I have to wait 1 year to see how the war will start. But today I'm happy because I can talk about the maturity level of TMF. So thank you for this opportunity. And now I think that we need to start, as you said, with the concept of maturity, because I don't think that lots of people have the experience and the knowledge of what a TMF maturity level is. And so why it is necessary, why it can be helpful for us. So let's start from the beginning, from the concept of maturity. So as you can see here, I think that you agree if I say that maturity means growing. There's a sense of growing in the terms maturity, from an egg to a chicken. There is this sense of a growing path of something. But it's not just growing. It's also a sense of knowledge. If you can see this picture, I think that the message is when you get older, you get a certain wisdom that obviously you don't have when you are a child, when you are a baby. Think about a baby that has just born. You don't expect this new baby just born to be able to speak, obviously, because there must be a path of growing, a path in its knowledge, in expertise of developing the language. So it's obvious that maturity means, yes, growing, but also the knowledge. the more you get older, let's say, the more knowledge you get. So you increase your expertise, you increase your knowledge, you develop your knowledge while you become older. So basically, what is a TMF maturity model? If you combine the experience and with the knowledge, you have at the end the TMF maturity model. So think about the knowledge. When we talk about the knowledge in terms of TMF requirement, you need to know what are the requirements for TMF management, what are the ICA GCP expectations, what are the competent authority expectations in terms of TMF. And in terms of experience, how many years of experience do you have in TMF management? It's obvious that it's the first time that you perform a quality check on your TMF. It's different that you have performed 1,000 for many years of quality check on a TMF. Your experience level is different. So combine the experience with the knowledge. These two parameters will give you the level of your TMF maturity. So what is a maturity model for TMF management? Well, it's a tool. Basically, it's a very useful tool to evaluate your progress in TMF process, to define the level of your TMF process management at current status. And it's a sort of a holistic approach of the main areas of progress, but also it's a holistic approach to identifying the main areas of deficiencies, because it's very important when you start to apply this model to understand where are the gaps, what is missing, where are the findings. So here is where I have to focus my attention and where I have to improve. So at the end, the maturity model helps you to deliver a qualitative but also quantitative analysis of the current TMF issue, so of how you are currently managing your TMF. So, say that, I've got a question for you because I want to understand if you're following, let's say, this topic. Do you think that knowing your TMF maturity model can improve your process or can reduce the gaps? A, reduce the GCP gaps in my TMF process. B, improve the quality of my TMF process. C, any TMF maturity model can do both. What's your opinion based on what I've just said?
All right, we've got about 40% of you guys and counting that have responded. If you guys aren't seeing the poll, head over to the poll section in your Zoom menu. You'll be able to see that there. We've got some interesting results so far, Donatella. I'm going to give everybody a few more minutes to fill out the poll.
Great.
I think you can probably assume which option most people are checking, or at least you'd hope.
I hope. I hope the last one, but let's see. I mean.
All right. I'm going to end the poll in 3, 2, 1. We'll end the poll and share the results with the team. So interestingly, 3% of the audience said to reduce the GCP gaps in my TMF process, 11% improve the quality of my TMF process, and 86% an eTMF maturity model can do both. So that's good. Everybody understands the value of an eTMF maturity model. So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like in practical terms.
Exactly. So I think that we can move on. The next slide. Okay, so when we talk about TMF maturity model, we have to consider basically 4 categories that manage, that compone the TMF maturity model. So the TMF organization, the TMF operation, the TMF processes, and the TMF system of records. Just to give you a better realistic idea of what I'm talking about, let's think about TMF organization as your high-level R&D department. So a very top level, let's say, generic level. So the high-level approach to TMF management. Then you go more granularly, you go in your TMF operation. So basically the department, the function, the unit that is managing the TMF. So how this unit is managing the TMF. And then more detail again, we go into the processes. So we analyze the process itself, the SOP, the working instruction, any templates. And last but not least, obviously, the system of records, because I hope that you are all managing electronic trial master file. So you've got a system that helps you with TMF process management. So these are the macro category that you have to consider when you are applying a maturity model to understand how is your current process, where you are, and where are the gaps, and so where I can improve it. Now I want to, for each category, give an example of the question that you have to ask yourself. Because basically, this maturity level is an assessment of your current situation, of your current process. So what you have to do, you have to analyze each single aspect of that category to understand if you are in compliance with requirement, if you are far away from the requirement, if maybe you haven't put in place anything for that specific requirement, or if you are just following best practice, or if there is a big gaps in terms of resources and processes for that particular step of the requirement in terms of TMF management. So just to give you an idea, because obviously the maturity model is a very long list of questions, let's say, to identify how your current process is. So just to give you an idea of what kind of question you're going to answer, I give you these slides. So TMF organization, as I told you before, is the highest level of how my company is approaching to TMF. So for example, is a TMF strategy in place that defines the strategic and operational value of TMF and the vision, goals, and objective? Is TMF governance in place to ensure ongoing assessment of an improvement in meeting the goals and objectives? Are the organization's TMF processes clear, sufficient, and compliant? Then, as I said before, we move more into the detail in the TMF operation, so the function, the unit. Let's think about clinical development that manage daily the TMF. And so, is the TMF plan reviewed by all related study team members, both sponsor and vendor? Are there standard reports that are used for global TMF management? Does the organization have a TMF metrics program in place? So these are questions related to the reality of the unit that manage the TMF, to understand how they daily manage the TMF, what is their level of maturity. And then we move on to processes. So let's think about that. We've got the SOP, 2, 1, 3 SOP on TMF management. So is a TMF established at the start of every trial? Is there a process to perform periodic quality checks of TMF to identify any filling issue and ensure that TMF meets quality standards? Is there a process of granting authorized user access to content, which also prevents access to non-authorized users? So we focus our attention, our question on the process to understand the current status. Last, TMF system record. So we've got the software, but is the TMF validated to GCP standards? Does the organization have policies and procedure for eTMF management for the full duration of GCP requirement? Are eTMF audit trail easy, accessible, and review for inspection? So based on this question, based on the answer of this question, you can do an assessment, analyze the data, and have your level of TMF maturity. Basically, we have, as you can see here, 5 different levels. And for each category, you can assign a level of maturity. Maybe you are in the initial level at organization, but you have a well-defined process. And maybe even in terms of software, you have an efficient level of maturity. So it's not because just in one category you are initial, doesn't mean that you are initial in all the category. This is why we have 4 different categories to evaluate, and for each of them, you can be in a different place in this staircase. So, and to give you more, let's say, practical idea of what these different steps, different stair means, let's think about the initial. So if you are at initial level, means that you are more reactive than proactive. So basically your process is not well organized. It's just, try to solve the issue when the issue comes, but you're not organized, planned, or you manage the process properly. Then you start to manage the process when you start to work for project. So you plan the project, you perform the project, and you monitor the project. But again, something is missing, so you don't have a framework of TMF management. So you can move to a defined step. In that defined step, your attitude is more proactive. So you don't wait for the issue to come, the issue to be identified, but you try to anticipate the issue and to define a process to improve it. After that, you can become efficient, and that means that your process is managed and controlled, that is data-driven, because you've got clear objectives, clear goals to achieve, and you keep monitor the metrics, for example, to reach that goals. Optimize, obviously, is the maximum level, and it means that you are just focused to improve, always improve the process, always be ready and update with the requirement, and be ready for the change, because we know that managing actively in eTMF is a very change in the culture, change in the mindset of the organization. So if you are in that level, it means that you are ready. You know what it means to have an active approach to TMF. Just to give you, again, a more practical idea. If any one of you has attended the TMF bootcamp in May, we have discussed about our idea, our approach of an agile eTMF. And what does it mean? It means that you forget to consider the TMF as a repository, just a collection of documents that have to be filled for requirement, but you start to see your TMF as something active that can give you lots of data in terms of clinical trial management. So you start to use actively the data from your TMF, you start to use actively the TMF as a tool to support the efficiency of a clinical trial. So in this case, we can say that if you just see the TMF as a repository, so just a collection of documents that I have to do to fill in, you are in a very initial step of your maturity. You still have to understand all the things that you can do, all the data that you can extrapolate for your TMF to arrive to the agile approach, to arrive to an active approach of your eTMF, to use it as a very efficient tool to improve the quality of your clinical trial. So now I'm curious, obviously, do you know the TMF maturity level inside your organization? Yes, no, I don't know who is responsible for it.
Okay, I've just launched the poll so everybody can start to fill it out. Really enjoyed that overview of TMF maturity levels, Donatella. I think that's a super insightful way for organizations to evaluate where they might be. And maybe we'll have a few people on the line that aren't really sure. So that's let's see what happens. So we got a couple more seconds. I'll give everybody maybe 10 more seconds to answer. About 60% of you have answered so far. We'd love for you all to try and open up the poll if you can. Okay, I'm going to end the poll in 3, 2, 1. And let's share the results. So a little bit of a mixed bag here, which is interesting. Donatella, what do you think of the results from the poll?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy. I mean, if you know the TMF maturity level inside your organization, it means that, first of all, you know what the TMF maturity level is, and you did an assessment, an analysis of your process to identify the gaps or just to improve it. So I'm very happy about that. So yeah, not bad, not bad.
All right, perfect. Thank you, everybody, for filling that poll out. Let's jump back into the presentation.
Yeah, let's move on. Okay, so what are the steps to identify your level of TMF maturity? Basically, as explained before, you have to perform an assessment for each category of the TMF maturity level. And then based on that assessment, you collect and analyze all the data that you have developed. You establish the level, so from the first till the last one, and you define the next step, define the strategy to follow, because again, it can be a tool to identify the gaps, to identify the finding in your process, but also to improve it. So based on the result of the outcome of this assessment, you define the strategy to move on. Basically, the maturity is a tool for growth. So if you apply this maturity model to your organization, it's because you are aware and you know that you want to grow in TMF management, because you want to be more inspection ready. And so to do that, you need to understand the level of experience, to understand the level of knowledge in terms of TMF requirement. And this will support the definition of goals and priority. So it's very important to identify your starting point in terms of maturity level, to understand the path and the strategy that will drive your future action, your next step. So when we talk about the TMF maturity, it's not just the process itself that you have to focus on, that you have to assess and verify in terms of what level am I belonging to. It's also a matter of maturity of people who are managing the TMF. So as explained at the beginning, maturity also means experience and knowledge, and people must have the experience and the knowledge in terms of TMF process and management. So it's very, very important, the training aspect, to help and to support the maturity of your team. So define a training strategy based on the level of experience. If you have a team that knows very well how to perform a risk-based approach, how to perform oversight, it's not necessary to focus on a TMF reference model and other basic principle and essential topic that maybe they know by heart. So focus your attention on maybe inspection readiness, data integrity, quality by design. So define the pathway for your training strategy. Define a role-based training plan. So if you are the one that perform uploading, indexing, and QC in a TMF, your training must be different from the one that just have an access, for example, as a viewer. So maybe just enter once a year at the TMF and have a look to some kind of documents for any reason. So based on your role, based on your responsibility, so based on a RACI table, I would suggest define a training plan. And what I think is very, very important, don't forget to do some practical exercise. So theory, first of all, because you need to understand the requirement and the regulation, the guideline, all that is required for a good and proper TMF management, but then put this theory into practice. Try to transform this theory, this concept, abstract concept, in daily responsibility, in daily activity, to better understand if you know how to apply the theory to your daily job. So everything starts with a plan. You need to understand your maturity level, you need to understand your TMF goals, and then define the TMF strategy plan. Think about, for example, if for example, after the assessment, it comes out that your maturity level is great, but you've got a bottleneck in terms of timeliness. And so your goals will become to increase and to improve the timeliness of your TMF. Well, your TMF strategy plan will be focused, will give the priority to the timeliness. So it's very, very important to use maturity level assessment also as to define the strategy for your TMF, understanding what are the priority and what can be done, after, in a second moment. So understand the gap and issue, and to do that, I would suggest even to perform a root cause analysis, because maybe it's just, a lack of knowledge. Let's think about a very common issue in the TMF, which is the mislocation of the document. Maybe it's just because people have not been trained on TMF reference model and they don't know how to use it, how to be guided by it. So perform a root cause analysis to understand the reason of that gap. Then focus on what is a priority. So identify what is a priority in terms, for example, of risk. Do a risk assessment and identify what has an impact on data integrity, on patient safety, and so have to be remediated very, very quickly and immediately. Identify effective solution. So develop, for example, a corrective and preventive action plan. So it can be corrective action to remediate immediately to the gaps that you have identified, but also develop a preventive action for the future. And to do that, you can also use a methodology like the plan, do, act, and check. So plan your strategy, perform the strategy, act, and check. Never forget to monitor all the efforts that you are doing to improve your TMF management, because they can work, they cannot work. And if they work, you can move on to another gap, you can move on to another step. So very important to keep monitoring what you're doing to improve your TMF status. A maturity model is also a model for quality. We all know that we have to implement the quality since the beginning of the clinical trial. It's very important, this concept of quality by design into the process of the clinical trial management. And the same applies for TMF. You need to apply quality in your TMF management. So move to a quality mindset, first of all, monitor the quality of your TMF process and improve the qualities. And maturity model can really do that for you, can really help you to understand where is the gap of quality in your TMF process and what you can do to improve the level of quality in your TMF management. So, live poll, do you know that a maturity assessment could support your company to improve your TMF process? No? Yes, because we have already done it. Yes, but I don't know how to do that. I don't know.
All right. The poll is launched for everybody that hasn't got there yet. Really interesting results so far. A nice bit of a split here between a couple different options, which is interesting. We'll give everybody about 10 more seconds to respond. I'm being critical with the time today. Okay, we've got about half of you have already responded. We'll give everybody another few seconds. Okay. So just as a summary, do you think that a maturity assessment could support your company to improve your TMF processes? Is it no? B, yes, but we have already done, yes, because we've already done it. C, yes, but I don't know how to do that. And D, I don't know. We'll give everybody a second or so. All right, it looks like we've got most of you here. So I'm going to end the poll in 3, 2, 1. All right, very interesting results here, Donatella. What do you think of the poll results?
I love this answer. I mean, I think that people has understood the relevance of maturity assessment, and I think that it's important to say, okay, I understand, but I don't know what to do. So very, very interesting, definitely.
Perfect. And we've obviously got some practical suggestions for those that maybe understand the value, but don't really know how to get started. So Donatella, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. So, sorry, maturity, I've got a quote, sorry about that. Maturity is when you stop complaining and make excuses and start making changes. I think that this quote can really make you understand that it's not just a matter of saying, I don't know how to make my TMF inspection ready. Stop complaining, stop saying that you don't know what to do. Start to think that you can do something, understanding the maturity level of your TMF process. Starting from that, it can be challenging. I'm not saying that it's something easy to implement, something to develop, but start to understand what is your current situation. Where are you in that staircase of maturity level? And so what you can do to improve your level, to improve your knowledge and to improve your expertise. Don't complain, it doesn't help, definitely. And to do that, we can support you. So we have thought at eTMF Services that definitely a training on eTMF processes and model can give you the theory of what I've just highlighted you here, of what a process looks like and what a maturity model can do for you. And this is the theory, let's say. But also, we have implemented a workshop of maturity, because as said before, it's very important to combine the theory of what I'm telling you or what I'm talking about with the practical. So, okay, now I understand what a TMF maturity model is, but I want to apply it to my situation. Where do I start? I don't know, because I don't have the expertise, I don't know the knowledge, I don't have anyone in my company with this kind of seniority and expertise. So we can do a workshop together and to perform an assessment of the maturity level of your organization, based obviously on the TMF maturity model. So we can guide you in the step of the process to develop the TMF maturity. And that I think is very an added value apart from the theory, because it will make you more understand, for example, how many aspects you have to consider in a trial master file management process. They are really a lot. And sometimes people forget that, again, it's not just a collection of documents. It implies a lot of activities, it implies lots of requirements that need to analyze to understand how inspection ready you are. What is your maturity to be inspection ready? So we combine the theory, which is obviously necessary, with something more practical to enter, in the reality of the theory. And with this last slide, just to give you some information, it was my last slide. So up to you, Oliver.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much, Donatella, for that insightful presentation. We do have a few questions. Maybe if you could stop sharing your screen and we will answer a couple of those questions. I actually have a question for you to kick things off. And that question is something that I hear quite a lot. Let's say we have attendees on the line that have, really enjoyed the presentation, but then understand that there is that they've bought into implementing a TMF maturity model, but maybe find it difficult to convince others that this is something that they need to do. How can those individuals go about trying to get internal buy-in from maybe their superiors or maybe non-TMF stakeholders to go through this TMF maturity model mapping and planning process?
Well, thank you so much, Oliver, for this question, because I think that is a common question when we're talking about TMF. And I think that the answer is just one, easy, but just one. So training and information. By my experience, majority of the time, people that don't care about TMF, there are people that don't care about TMF because they don't like it, okay? But there are lots of people that don't care and should care about TMF just because they are not aware of the requirement. They're not aware of the impact in terms of inspection and consequences of failing inspection for a bad TMF. So they are not aware, let's say, of this TMF word. And so not being aware, so not having the knowledge of this requirement, of this need, will cause, the lack of interesting. They are not involved, they're not engaged. They're not interested in this kind of development of quality and all the stuff. So the first step is I want you to make you aware that these are the requirements, these are the expectations, not my expectation, the expectation of competent authority, the expectation of an inspection. So these are what we are asked for because we need to ensure the data integrity and the safety of the patient. So in terms of TMF, these are the requirements. We are in this situation. We can do this like the maturity assessment to improve our situation. So start from sharing the knowledge, start from make people understand the relevance and the bad consequences of not being inspection ready. Start from the point and make people aware that there are tools that can improve your level and your situation. But obviously, you need to define the strategy, the plan. But the first step is training / information.
Okay, so really what that is, to sort of synthesize what you're saying there, is for you to get buy-in, you need to expose the potential risk of not doing something and not going through this process, and then also exposing the benefits and what you're going to get out of it as a team and as an organization. I absolutely
Exactly.
love that.
Yeah.
I have a question here from Anoop. So Anoop asks, is there any standard data or information that can help me define my organization's TMF maturity level? I think you covered that a little bit, but maybe if you want to expand a little bit there.
Well, standard, I would say no, just because a maturity level is really something tailored and customized according to your reality. So definitely you can compare the result and the situation of your organization to the best practice of the industry, to the requirements, but the assessments must be done on your own reality, because as showed you before, maybe you are very efficient and optimized in managing the system itself. So you've got, the audit trail review process, it's a validated system, all the requirement in terms of eTMF system, but maybe your process is not robust enough. So at the end, you will have to develop a new process to be efficient as the software. Or maybe other situation. In your department, you are really taking care about TMF, but at the organization point of view, people don't think about it. So maybe you will find a situation when your company acquire another company and you receive a TMF without having assessed it, and you will have lots of gaps, lots of issues, just because at a high level, they don't understand all the assessment and impact that has to be done on a TMF. So it's another situation. Or another situation can be, I am the only one that take care of my TMF, but the rest of the team, of the study team, data manager, statistician, and all the stuff, they don't care. So I need to enlarge the team of people that really care about the quality of my TMF. So again, you can have a look to best practice, to other situation, but the maturity model is your maturity model. So I have to be customized and tailored based on your current status. I hope it was clear.
Yeah, that was amazing. Another question here. So why do all sponsors not have a standard process for filing of TMF documents in eTMF? Everyone using specific processes and SOPs for filing practice?
Well, first of all, because there are different options. So the workflow for uploading and doing quality check indexing is, let's say, almost the same, I would say, depending on the software that you are doing, but more or less the steps are those ones. So collecting, indexing, uploading, indexing, and then do a quality check, and maybe a second quality check, and maybe an oversight also. So let's say more or less the steps are those. The point is that you can have a different option based again on your maturity level to do that. So let's think about, for example, that you are a very small company with no resources, with no time for TMF management. And we all know that TMF requires lots of time and a lot of people and resources to do that. So your strategy can be, I define the process, but I outsource the process to a CRO, to a vendor, to a consultant. So I outsource the process, and so the process has to be a little bit, let's say, customize and adjust according to the situation. Or other option, I want to have the most control that I can on my TMF. So I bring everything in-house. I do all the steps of the process in-house, even the oversight and the health check of my TMF. So I will have a team, an entire team to manage the TMF. So in that case, the process will be different, because again, it will not be more it will not be an oversight of someone else doing the activity for you. It will be really taking the responsibility. So you will have a role in your SOP. We will have basically a RACI table to identify who is doing what. So again, based on the situation, based on the model that you want to implement in terms of TMF management, you will have to develop a process that fit that model.
All right, amazing. We had I guess a kind of a follow-up question from Eleonora in the chat, who wanted to know if you could give a practical example, maybe a specific example of how to assess maturity, maybe at a certain level. Or I know that you mentioned that there were sort of 4 categories. Like, maybe do you want to give a practical example that maybe someone could take away from today to sort of start looking at maybe where they're at from a TMF maturity perspective?
Yeah, sure. Very practical, because I went through this exercise 2 years ago, let's say, when I was working at sponsor site. So basically, who is performing the maturity assessment, for example, let's say Montrium, will have to understand your current process. So we'll have to read and go through all the TMF SOP, working instruction, any templates and rules that you have for TMF management to understand and to make a picture of how your current process is. So once this person, I would say, well, let's say Montrium, when Montrium will understand how your current process is, so we'll have even, I don't know, visualize the process in a flow chart, they will answer to the question that are divided, as I said, for category, so organization, process, system, and department. And based on that question, based on the result of the question, they will compare if these are, let's say, a good situation, so an optimized situation, or not. Give you the example, if a question on the system, related system, is about audit trail, and the question is, do you have an audit trail review process in place inside your organization? Yes or no? If you tell me no, obviously you are at the initial level in that particular aspect of your TMF process. If you tell me, yes, I've got an SOP, a dedicated SOP for audit trail review, okay, not bad. So I will give you a different score, a different level for that part. Done this exercise for all the aspects of the process with all the results, that it's a sort of analysis and combination of data, and then you've got the result. So let's say that maybe for the software, the organization and the department, you are optimized, but we identify some deficiency in the process because, for example, you don't have a process or a rule in place to manage the emails. Emails are part of the TMF, and they are a very tricky aspect of your TMF management to ensure the quality and inspection readiness. So you have to manage them anyway. You have to have a rule in place. If you don't have it, that can be a gap. So we have to work on that to fill the gap and to improve your process. I hope it can be a little bit more clear, but yeah, I think that we developed the workshop to make really more understand what are the steps in practical activity of a TMF maturity model.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe just to add to that, obviously, because we've developed a TMF maturity model here at Montrium with those different steps and levels, let's say, that you are able to map those different parts of your process to. As part of those workshops that we typically run with customers, we'll be able to provide you with that guidance on where parts of your process sit within that maturity model. But certainly, if you want to start that process yourself, you can do so by identifying, well, what are the key criteria for each of those different levels of the maturity model? What do you consider initial, and so on and so forth? And then as you go through, start to tag or categorize those different parts of your process with that maturity level and map those two together. We're over time by a couple of minutes, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time, and we do have another session starting in about 12 minutes. So I'm sure myself and Donatella definitely want to take a quick drink before we jump into the next session. But I want to thank everybody for attending today. We've had such an amazing, engaged audience, lots of really great questions. It goes without saying, Donatella, this was just another super insightful presentation. If anybody wants to reach out to Montreal or to Donatella specifically following today's session, you can reach out to Donatella Ballerini on LinkedIn, and we'd be happy to assist you and help you with anything that you might be going through. Of course, if you're looking for more insightful information on our TMF maturity packages, so the training and the workshops, we do cover the TMF maturity model, as Donatella mentioned, and we'd be happy to discuss that with you if there's an interest. I'll close it for today, and I will see you guys in about 10 minutes for the next session, where we'll be focusing on how to put in place a TMF management process. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.